OMG, I drained all the powers from a group of superheroes all the way in New York. Happy emoticon.
Myself and Dan, the co-creator, and let's be honest, every member of our crew all grew up as Marvel fans. That was kind of how I learned to draw, was tracing over Marvel comics. So to get to play with those characters was one of those real dream come true moments. I think it was shortly after the whole merger was announced when we started hinting at our bosses saying, you know, a little crossover, we could do that. And when they said yes, we were overjoyed, and guys were fighting with each other about getting to work on those particular shows. And it was a challenge. I mean, it scared us at first because everybody takes these characters very serious, and so do we. And I can't say there wasn't, you know, equally a huge amount of fear that we wouldn't, you know, have the time to get it right, because you have to get it right. Fans demand that you get these things right, and you want to get the same kind of humor that we get out of Phineas and Ferb, but you don't want to do it at the expense of the characters. And that's harder to do. And Disney was really great about giving us the time that we needed to really get it right. And we ended up with something that we're all massively proud of. So yeah, there was a lot of giggling when we were watching the episode back at all the various stages. We're very happy.
This summer,
Whoa! Well, that's new.
Marvel's The Avengers and Spider-Man stand powerless.
Can somebody find a furniture dolly?
Well, everybody had to be who they are, and that was the hard part. We couldn't bring the Marvel characters into our world and change who they are at their core. All the humor that we get has to be derived from them staying true to their character. And it was the same for ours. And we have difficult characters. I mean, Phineas and Ferb are able to do most things, and they're never trying to be malicious or never trying to get away with anything or be sneaky. So getting all of those elements when you have the Marvel superheroes appear on your doorstep and make sure that Mom doesn't see and that Candace has her part, it was all very, very tricky. And again, you don't ever want to make the heroes be anything less than heroic. And that was tricky. So we had a lot of 3x5 cards up on the wall, moving the pieces around till we got it right. And I really have to applaud all of the execs, both on the Disney and the Marvel side, who had the patience to let us do that. Because for the longest time in our process, because we don't do scripts at Phineas and Ferb, we go from an outline. For the longest time, I think it looks like we have no idea what we're doing. Because it is a lot of playing what-if games till you get all the pieces just right and sort of nudge it along. So it requires a huge amount of faith. And when you're talking about the Marvel characters, it's hard for people to have faith in you that far down the process. And they were pretty good sports about the whole thing, because you really, a few meetings we had to go and say, look, I know what it looks like now. I see the look on your face, but trust me, this is our process. By the end, it'll all be great, trust me. And they were really good about it. And they were very good at suggesting things, because we'd find dead ends that we couldn't go down because of sometimes, quite frankly, just legal reasons why we couldn't use certain characters or certain things. And they were very good at brainstorming with us to find workarounds and alternatives. And like I said, a few of those guys who know the Marvel Universe so incredibly well were great about saying, well, how about if you use this guy this way, or we have another character that, and so they helped us put all these pieces together. The nice part was watching all of the executives as the, you know, the whole thing kind of came together toward the very end, seeing the change in their faces go from that concern to the really like, oh, I see what you're doing. That's really good. And the genuine joy when we finally finished, you know, showed them the finished product, that they, you know, really, really were pleased with what we'd done. That was very rewarding.
Only the Phineas and Ferb crew can help them.
Juice in a box? We have nothing like this in Asgard.
Boys and girls, listen up. Hey, Spider-Man.
We had to have a whole education about the different Marvel universes that all these different versions of the characters and habits and the alternate history and timelines and everything. It's really elaborate. We had a guru who kind of came over and sat in all the meetings and stuff and kind of guided us through which characters exist in the same world and which don't, and because we had to figure out which characters and which villains were going to all show up together, and did it work, and who we could mention and who we couldn't, and it was, that part of it got to be fun and a little bit silly. And we had to redo a lot of the models so that they maintained the Marvel look, but still fit into our world. But we've had a whole bunch of artists who've been on the crew since we started back in 2006, making the original Phineas and Ferbs, who've been drawing our characters our way for a long time, and all the Marvel characters, different structure, different shading. And I remember the first few weeks with people coming in, it's like, these guys are really hard. It's like, well, the Phineas and Ferb characters are hard too. It's just you've been doing them so long, it's easy for you. So this is, flexing some new muscles. But we had at least 3 or 4 guys on the crew that were incredible comic book artists. So what we were doing is processing a lot of the work through them. So we kind of had our hitmen. Is once everybody got it to a certain point, these guys would take over and kind of put the Marvel polish on it. And we got to do these amazing action set pieces that we normally don't get to do in Phineas and Ferb, these huge fight sequences that were, one guy I don't think left the studio for about a week, a guy named Kyle, who's kind of this crazed storyboard artist animator. I seriously suspected I'd come in the morning very early and he was still there, and I'm sure he was wearing the same clothes that he was wearing the night before. But he never complained. He really enjoyed doing that.
Talk about being disarmed.
This is director Nick Fury of SHIELD.
That's SHIELD. It's an acronym.
Like Auka.
Yes, except it's cool.
All of our guys, our whole crew, is used to writing for Phineas and Ferb now, which again isn't easy. They have really unique voices. In the early days, just going through a list of things that Phineas would never say. And I felt bad for writers because it's all the things that you do quickly and easily. It's the tools that you're used to using that you keep saying, well, you can't do that with Phineas. He's not a brat. He's not he's not trying to be sneaky. And those are all the easy places. And it's, the same moving into this. It was very easy for them to make the Marvel characters do things that were convenient for our Phineas and Ferb story, but definitely not good for the Marvel characters. And it's, it's never malicious, but it's a lot of pieces that have to fit together. And so you can see people, well, if I could just, if he just did that. And it's like, yeah, I know, but he'd never do that. And so you have these very strange debates about what characters would or wouldn't say. In fact, we lifted an entire conversation straight out of a meeting and put it in the show. And it was one of the funniest things we did, because we were talking about, at one point, the superheroes get their powers mixed up. Phineas and Ferb are trying to restore their powers, and they get mixed up. And so Ironman ends up with Thor's powers. So we said, oh, great, then he can have the hammer. And the guy went, oh, no, he can't. We're like, well, he's got his power. He goes, yeah, but it's not about strength. It's about worthiness. He has to be worthy to pick up the hammer. Oh, okay. So lightning, he can do the lightning, right? Well, no, that's got with the hammer. Okay, well, flying, he can fly. Well, yes, but only with the hammer. So we just took that whole conversation and made it between Tony Stark and Thor after their powers are switched. We played it back for him. The executives howled with laughter. We were glad because they were either going to find it very funny or take offense. Unfortunately, they were in on the gag with us, so it was a lot of fun. When you're trying to derive humor, and again, we were trying to make sure that the humor that we used came from their characters. So yeah, we did some spoofing of some of the recent movies and things like that. We pulled a few shots. People that are real fans of the films and the comic books, there's little things in there for all of them.
Which is what you want.
Yeah, well, like I said, we're fans too. So we were just in there making ourselves laugh, and we had no shortage of suggested ideas from the crew. Like I said, everybody really likes all this stuff, so the ideas were flying fast and furious. And the sad part was some horrifically funny things that didn't make the show just because they didn't fit. There was a few gags that we so wanted to work because they were hysterical, but it just didn't fit the story. So we've got a little pile of those sitting somewhere. We're saving them.
Looks like we are going on an evil road trip.
Ooh, shotgun.
You do not fit in the shotgun position.
We've been making this show for adults since day one. We're a bunch of adults who sit in the room and try to make each other laugh. So again, that was another part that came easy. We've never pulled away from any jokes or any humor that we thought only the adults would get. We've kind of relied on them. And the parents have to sit and watch these. Every so often you lob one over the kid's head at mom and dad back there, and occasionally even one for Grandma and Grandpa. So we just kept doing what we've been doing. Our only rule is we never put a joke in there that we think that if the parents had to explain it would be an uncomfortable conversation. So we don't ever put anything inappropriate in there, but we don't mind referencing things or even shooting a little higher. I remember the first time the show had only been on the air for about a year, and a very small kid came up to me and said, "I want to thank you for making a show that's smart."
Spider-Man smash! Up!
Was he making fun of me?
A little, yes.
This was the biggest crossover type collaboration we've done, and we were all a little nervous and had a fair amount of trepidation going into it. It was a huge amount of will to do it, but it was scary, and it all worked incredibly well. So as soon as we finished it off, we started thinking, oh, we got to do more of these, and I don't know where we're going to go with it, but it was a really fun thing to do, and everybody, that was the nice thing, everybody, including all of the execs and everybody and the folks at Marvel, all said, that was a hugely rewarding, very positive experience. So hopefully we'll get to do more kind of things like that.
You really should use sunblock. You're burned down to the bone.
Being old Marvel fans, the fact that Stan is in there is... That was my big geek moment. I took a whole bunch of selfie pictures of me with Stan. That was, I said, I'm going to take way too many of these and completely embarrass myself, and I don't care. He was really great.
Phineas and Ferb, Mission Marvel. Coming summer 2013. Only on Disney Channel and Disney XD.